Good morning, Eastern Carolina. I'm Storm Track 12 meteorologist Les Still, sporting my Eagles tie and supporting my Eagles against the Redskins tonight. You see me a little groggy in here tomorrow morning as I plan to stay up and watch the majority of that game. But we've got a new tropical cyclone that we are tracking. Tropical storm was formed in the early morning hours this morning, and it looks like it is going to be staying well out in the Atlantic. Tropical storm Umberto. Now, let's kind of take a little bit of a tour of the Atlantic here. We are watching a little area, once again, a lot of action going on in the southwestern Gulf. Potentially could get something in there. Again, another one of these late developing quick spin-up storms that quickly moves its way inland. Also, we've still got the remnants of Gabrielle. Now, the question is, why is it still there? Well, we've got southwesterly winds, but a pile-up of heat, and I get thinking this may potentially make a comeback, although it's going to be affecting Bermuda more so than it would be us here in Eastern Carolina. But that is something we'll continue to track. And yes, if it does make a comeback, it will be renamed Gabrielle. Now, this is the big player in the Eastern Atlantic, far Eastern Atlantic. This is Umberto. Again, we've got the Cape Verde Islands right here, which is where the storm is right now. This is the coast of Africa. And you can see this is quickly developing that classic S shape to it as this storm system will quickly develop as it's come off of the African continent. 5 o'clock yesterday on Sunday was upgraded to a depression, and as of 5 o'clock this morning, it has now been upgraded to Tropical Storm Umberto. 13.4 north, 23.3 west, if you're tracking along at home with our Storm Track 12 severe weather tracking chart. No problem whatsoever for here in Eastern Carolina, as this is going to be a fish storm remaining well out into the Atlantic Ocean. But as I said, it's got a pretty healthy signature to it with the outflow, and looks like it is going to continue to make its way in through the central Atlantic. Now, you'll notice it remains as a tropical storm as we go through tonight and tomorrow, and then eventually between tomorrow afternoon and Wednesday morning does get upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane. That potentially could be historic. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But again, you can see it basically going up along the 30-degree longitude line there, and then eventually maybe getting back to 35 to 40 longitude, but going high in latitude. So it's getting into the colder water there. It'll probably just mess around in the central Atlantic before it completely dissipates. Now, here's what I was talking about as far as possibly record-setting with this storm here. We've now had 8 named storms in the Atlantic Basin, none of which have reached hurricane status. And that is very unusual because normally by August 19th, we get our first named hurricane. And normally by September, we've already got our first major hurricane, Category 3 or above, none of which have taken place this year. So there's only 3 other years that we've gone this late into the season, 1984, 2001, and 2002, that we have not had a system named as a hurricane this late into the season. And that goes all the way back to 1967 when we first started using satellite, or we call it the satellite observation era. So it is a fairly rare occurrence here for us. And if Umberto does not get upgraded to hurricane status before Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., that will be the longest we've gone into the Atlantic hurricane season without having a named hurricane. The old record, something we're very familiar with here in Eastern Carolina, was in 2002 with Gustav. It was initially formed as a subtropical system and then first named north of the Bahamas and then eventually passed east of Hatteras as a tropical storm. So we are quite familiar with Gustav here in Eastern Carolina. But again, if we do not get Umberto to be upgraded to hurricane status by 8 a.m. on Wednesday, then it will be the longest record-setting time in history with going into the hurricane season without having a hurricane. Here's your Storm Track 12 forecast as we head on through the afternoon hours today. Just a few clouds today, warm and humid, upper 80s to near 90 degrees, mid-80s at the beaches with an east-southeasterly wind. Clear early, but then low clouds and patchy fog will form in the early morning hours tomorrow morning, just like we had this morning. Temperatures very similar, mid-60s to low 70s, and then back into the upper 80s to near 90 as we head on in through the day tomorrow. Again, tomorrow very similar to today, and that's going to be the case for most of the days this week until we hit the end. We'll talk about that in just a minute. How about 88 for the top temperature yesterday in Greenville, 89 in New Bern, and 90 in Richland. Again, we're going to be back into this neighborhood as we go on through the day today. 85, though, that's average. That's where we should be for this time of year. Not record-setting. Mid-90s is record-setting here, but still lets you know that we are above normal as far as temperatures are concerned. And here's the reason why. This big upper-level ridge at the jet stream level here. You can definitely see our storm track up along the U.S.-Canadian border. Here's our upper-level ridge. Now, this is where all the heat is out here in central Iowa and southern Minnesota, and that is actually coming our way on northwesterly winds. So I know it's a little bit unusual. However, we are going to be looking at the warmth actually coming across the northern plains of the Great Lakes and getting into our neighborhood as we progress through this week. Now, the upper level ridge does start to break down a little bit here. You'll notice the upper level high basically kind of sits up right over us as we go in through Tuesday and Wednesday. And as a result, we're going to be looking at the hot, humid conditions continuing in here at least until Thursday. Now, notice on Wednesday, we start to see the next trough digging in. That's going to drive a pretty powerful cold front with a lot of cool air in on the backside of this system. And that will be affecting our weather as we head in through Thursday. Notice we get the upper level ridges to split. Not situated over Minnesota and Iowa anymore. It's back down over Texas, and the other upper level ridge kind of more out, not necessarily towards Bermuda, but kind of in the western Atlantic, just off the Bahamas and the Caribbean more so. And that's going to allow the weakness in between to allow the trough to drive that cold front through here later on Thursday going into Friday. And then we do look for nice, refreshing, cool Canadian air mass to come our way as we head into early next weekend, which will be our first real taste of some fall weather for us here in the east. Until then, though, we've got a weak front making its way through the area, but you can definitely see the pattern and the flow in the atmosphere. Gulf of Mexico void of anything near the coast, all the way out into the Rockies. Then the flow basically goes from Phoenix to Helena up towards Minneapolis, and that's around that upper level ridge that is dominating the weather, not only for us, but also for the most of the eastern U.S. So that front slips southbound with little fanfare. I mean, we're not even talking a lot of cold air behind it, let alone drops and dew points. Again, the warm air is coming in from the northern plains into us here in eastern Carolina. So as a result, it's more of a wind shift line. That's about it. As we progress through the day today, we'll be looking at east-southeasterly winds, light winds overnight tonight, as future track shows. Yeah, I guess there could be a spotty shower or sprinkle along the sea breeze front as we go on through tomorrow or even this afternoon, but really not anticipating much in the way of rainfall this week. And then we do look for this high-level clouds to kind of build in here late Tuesday going into Wednesday as a little disturbance goes by in the atmosphere. Also a little bit more cloudiness potentially off the southeast coast, but that may be just off the coast far enough to not really mar the coastal sections here along the Crystal Coast. So here's your planning forecast. Upper 80s to near 90 degrees, hot and humid weather, and then that stronger cold front comes through as we go in through the day. Late Thursday going into Friday, showers and storms probably holding off at least until after sunset. Probably out of here by noontime on Friday. And then there's that first taste of real cool, refreshing fall air with overnight lows into the low to mid-50s by early Sunday morning. Have yourself a good Monday. I'm Storm Track 12 meteorologist Les Still.